and liftoff. Liftoff of the 25th Space Shuttle mission, and it has cleared the tower.
Now control.
Roger, roll, Challenger.
Good, roll program confirmed. Challenger now heading downrange. Engines beginning throttling down now at 94%. Normal throttles for most of the flight, 104%. We'll throttle down to 65% shortly. Engines at 65%, 3 engines running normally, 3 good fuel cells, 3 good APUs. Velocity 2,257 feet per second. Altitude 4.3 nautical miles. Downrange distance 3 nautical miles. Engines throttling up. 3 engines now at 104%.
Challenger, go at throttle up.
Challenger, go at throttle up.
1 minute 15 seconds. Velocity 2,900 feet per second. Altitude 9 nautical miles. Downrange distance 7 nautical miles. Flight controllers here looking very carefully at the situation. Obviously a major malfunction. We have no downlink. We have a report from the flight dynamics officer that the vehicle has exploded. Flight director confirms that. We are looking at checking with the recovery forces to see what can be done at this point. Contingency procedures are in effect. We will report more as we have information available. Again, to repeat, we have a report relayed through the flight dynamics officer that the vehicle has exploded. We are now looking at all the contingency operations and awaiting word from any recovery forces in the downrange field.
Here in the NBC newsroom in New York, we have just seen the launch of the Space Shuttle Challenger. There has been a major problem with that launch. We're going to show you now videotape. We don't know the exact nature of the problem, but there has, as you can see, a little bit after the launch, there has been a problem, and we're checking now with officials at the Cape to see the exact nature of it. Here now is the launch. It took place about 3 or 4 minutes ago, and again, there has been a major problem with the launch.
T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. We have main engine start. 4, 3, 2, 1, and liftoff. Liftoff of the 25th Space Shuttle mission, and it has cleared the tower.
In just a minute here, you will see an explosion. The Space Shuttle Challenger apparently exploded.
Challenger now heading downrange.
Coming up now in about 30 seconds. You will see it very clearly on your television set.
Engines beginning throttling down now at 94%. Normal throttles for most of the flight, 104%. We'll throttle down to 65% shortly.
Watch carefully now for the explosion, which is captured by the television camera there at Cape Canaveral. The explosion taking place about 28 miles downrange, just after the astronauts were told to go to full throttle.
Engines throttling up, 3 engines now at 104%.
Challenger, go at throttle up.
There is the explosion.
1 minute 15 seconds, velocity 2,900 feet per second.
We have no indication at this hour of the fate of the 6 crew members, along with Krista McAuliffe, the school teacher who is taking this flight. This is the first failure of this kind in 56 U.S. man in space missions. There you can see the contorted configuration of the contrails. One of them is the capsule itself. The other, we think, is the solid rocket booster. Again, there has been a major problem, an explosion, with today's launch of the Space Shuttle Challenger. It was delayed for several hours because of cold weather and some icing down at the Cape. A major malfunction is what they're calling it. Again, we have no word on the fate of the crew members, but it does not look good. The launch took place about 10 minutes ago at Cape Canaveral. It had been scheduled to lift off yesterday, was delayed because of a malfunction. This is now, we're looking at pictures from the Cape. You see there a clear blue sky and the contrails of smoke caused by the explosion. There being the launch pad where the Shuttle Challenger just took off just moments ago. Again, there is no indication of the fate of the crew. We are standing by as you are. We are listening to the officials, the NASA officials there at the Cape, to see. But there is some great concern as to whether or not they were able to survive. There are a number of emergency devices, a number of emergency procedures designed for various situations, but as you saw there was a tremendous explosion just after the astronauts were told to go to full throttle. Now we see a parachute coming down from the sky. That a very happy, a very welcome sign. Again, this explosion took place, as you saw, about 28 miles downrange, and now we see the glorious view of a parachute coming down. There's one parachute. Perhaps there are others. Again on board, Krista McAuliffe, the school teacher from Concord, New Hampshire, making her first flight.
Houston, we are coordinating with recovery forces in the field. Range safety equipment, recovery vehicles intended for the recovery of the SRB in the general area. Those parachutes believed to be paramedics going into that area.
Well, they cleared that up. We were hoping at that point the parachutes were from the crew members of the Space Shuttle Challenger. We are now told they are paramedics.
Apparently normal ascent with the data coming to all positions being normal up through approximately the time of main engine throttle back up to 104%. At about approximately a minute or so into the flight, there was an apparent explosion. The flight dynamics officer reported that tracking reported that the vehicle had exploded and impacted the water in an area approximately located at 28.64 degrees north, 80.28 degrees west. Recovery forces are proceeding to the area, including ships and a C-130 aircraft. Flight controllers reviewing their data here in Mission Control. We will provide you with more information as it becomes available. This is Mission Control, Houston.
And the word there from Mission Control that the explosion aboard the Space Shuttle Challenger occurred a minute or so into flight, about 28 miles downrange. That the vehicle then impacted on the water, some at least at one point about 28 miles out to sea from the Cape. As the controllers at NASA said at Cape Canaveral, it was a normal launch until about a minute into the flight when there was that terrific explosion. And at this point, we certainly have no word on the fate of Krista McAuliffe, the school teacher on board, or the other members aboard the Space Shuttle Challenger. We just know nothing now. There was hope, as we saw a few minutes ago, when we saw that parachute in the sky, but we were informed by NASA that that parachute was paramedics who are now at the scene there of the impact into the water, and they were bailing out to do what they can. Again, this is the first time there has been such a situation in all of the manned space flights. There have been drills and rehearsals for emergencies such as this, but when you have such a terrific explosion, it's a very, very difficult situation. Word now from NASA is that one of the ship's two solid rocket boosters apparently detonated, causing that explosion about a minute into the flight. Steve Nesbitt, the spokesman for NASA, said, "We have a problem. We have a report the vehicle has exploded." That's when we first learned about it. Of course, those that were watching the liftoff today live, as I was, saw something wrong when, of course, you saw the terrific explosion, and then you saw two separate contrails, one being the spaceship itself, and then the other apparently being that one of the solid rocket boosters that did not explode. Let's go back once again and take a look at, as we're waiting for more information from the Cape, let's once again roll that videotape of the launch now about, 10 or 12 minutes ago, maybe 15 minutes ago, the Space Shuttle Challenger, delayed from yesterday, delayed a couple of hours this morning because of weather, and now here's the scene that occurred a short time ago.
T-minus 15 seconds. T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. We have main engine start. 4, 3, 2, 1, and liftoff. Liftoff of the 25th Space Shuttle mission, and it has cleared the tower.
Now control.
Roger, roll, Challenger.
Good roll program confirmed. Challenger now
We're
heading
watching here a
downrange.
replay of the launch of the Space Shuttle Challenger a short time ago. A mission short-lived that has apparently ended in disaster and explosion a little more than a minute into the flight.
For most of the flight, 104%. We'll throttle down to 65% shortly. Engines at 65%, 3 engines running normally, 3 good fuel belts, 3 good APUs. Velocity 2,257 feet per second. Altitude 4.3 nautical miles. Downrange distance 3 nautical miles. Engines throttling up. 3 engines now at 104%.
Challenger, go at throttle up.
Roger, go to Bravo.
And there we see the explosion just after NASA told the astronauts aboard the shuttle Challenger to go at full throttle up. And there you see the strange configurations of the smoke and the burning shuttle. This is the 10th flight for the shuttle Challenger. And again, the first time there has been an accident of this type after the launch from the Cape. Let's go now to the Houston Space Center, the Johnson Space Center in Houston, and correspondent Dan Molina. Dan, what information do you have? What can you tell us there?
John, an absolutely numbing sight. It's very difficult to express anything at this point other than the information that we're getting from NASA. The word that we got, as you got, was simply a very, very straightforward, bland, emotionless statement from Steve Nesbitt, the NASA commentator, is that he said we have a report that the vehicle has exploded. Words that just startled everybody to the point of absolute non-belief, but you saw the pictures as we did. There is no doubting the fact that there was an extremely serious explosion. Whether anybody survived or not is a matter for conjecture at this point. There were, of course, 7 crew members on board Challenger. Francis Dick Scobie was the mission commander, a man of great experience, logging more than 6,500 hours in 45 different types of aircraft. The pilot, Michael Smith, Judith Resnick, Dr. Judith Resnick was on that crew, Ronald McNair, Ellison Onizuka, Greg Jarvis, and Sharon Krista McCullough. We have no information right now other than the information which has come down from NASA commentary. We have requested, of course, more information, but everybody is trying to find out themselves what has happened, and they are not offering us any more elaboration on this, what is apparently an extremely serious occurrence, perhaps a disaster of major proportions. There seems to be, as we watch the explosion, no time for the crew to use any of the ejection devices which they have available to them. There is, we are always mindful, a system attached to a space shuttle during launch to explode it on command should the shuttle go haywire and fly over a populated area. That is a sort of a doomsday device that's attached to the shuttle's fuel system, and it could be triggered from the ground or from the spacecraft itself. Now, I'm not at all implying that that went haywire in this case, and there was some inadvertent tripping of that system. However, there is such a system attached to the shuttle, and it could have been involved in something like this. They were about a minute away from the point where they would have separated the solid rocket boosters from the shuttle. That is an explosive process in and of itself, but they weren't even near that point, near in the sense of the amount of time in which things happen. Things happen very quickly, of course, during a launch sequence, and they weren't really near the point where that small explosive devices would have gone off and separated the solid rocket boosters from the orbiter. So it can only be conjecture at this point as to what would have happened. As we say, 7 crew members on board, and including Krista McCullough, and the people who are watching at the Cape at this point, the spectators, all of the people in launch control, all of the people in mission control, as well as all of us watching right here, are simply find ourselves startled, and we are, I am told, going to take a look back at the crew getting on board the shuttle this morning. This is a shot in the so-called White Room. The White Room is pressed up against the side of the shuttle's hatch, and it's through that hatch that the crew settles themselves into to their seats for launch. We see by the hatch there Ron McNair nodding his head, waiting for one of the other crew members to get themselves seated. Krista McCullough is in the foreground with Greg Jarvis. She, at that point, obviously happy, eager. It looked this morning as though things were running along smoothly. There was a delay because of ice that had built up on the outside of the shuttle. It was extremely cold in Florida last night, and icicles built up at various points along the shuttle. The only concern about that, however, was that icicles might break off after launch and perhaps damage the thermal protection tiles on the shuttle. There was no thought at all that ice, as was the concern this morning, could have had any sort of impact on the shuttle that could have caused an explosion of this magnitude. It would be very difficult for ice to have that kind of effect, and so that, at least at first glance, would seem to be something that didn't enter into their calculations at all. This was Krista McAuliffe waiting to get her helmet on, and she was presented with an apple from one of the ground control team members as she very happily looked forward to the launch this morning. And nearby, about 3 miles away in the VIP viewing area, her husband, Stephen, who is an attorney in their hometown of Concord, New Hampshire. They have 2 children, Caroline, who is 7 years old, if I recall correctly, perhaps 6, and Scott, who is 9. All of them viewing in the VIP viewing area not far away. That, I believe, in the foreground now, you're just beginning to see Judy Resnick, Dr. Resnick, of course, a space veteran. Krista laughing, as they all were this morning. It seemed, even though they had a launch delay this morning, they were all in such good spirits as they got set to board the Shuttle Challenger. It seemed the launch control teams and everybody involved seems to have a feeling when the launch is going to go. Delay after delay, of course. The last flight, we had the feeling that we are, I'm told, going to the White House now, and so we will take you back to New York.
Let's go now to, there's Larry Speaks in the White House briefing room.
What he has just seen replayed on television concerning the shuttle launch. We do not have any more information than is being provided to the public at this time. The way the President found out about it is he was in the Oval Office with a group of senior staff preparing for some questions with a group of network correspondents and anchors that were having lunch in the White House today regarding the budget and the State of the Union. The Vice President and the Foreign Policy Advisor, John Poindexter, came in with others and informed the President that the news had just broken. We immediately adjourned our Oval Office meeting and went into an adjoining room, the President's